celebrating the power of possibility.
I'm Harold Middlebrook, and I believe anything is possible.
Welcome to Anything is Possible. These are great stories about great people whose lives prove that anything is possible. And it is my high honor to have a dear friend and mentor, Dr. Harold Middlebrook, in the studio with me today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Halloran. I bow to the Honorable Harold Hilton Hill, who sits on the throne.
Hey, you know what? I want to start and end this time we're going to spend together the same way. I want to say how much I love and appreciate you.
Thank you, sir.
Like I have a deep love and appreciation and respect for you. Via my father. My father was a minister here in town. And
College Hill Seventh-day Adventist Church.
And you and my father were great friends. You know, I got a best buddy. I got a couple of best buddies. I think they're of the four types of love in the Greek. There's one called storge.
Yes.
Which is genuine affection, right? It is the one type of love that you can't synthesize, and it really is. It's the framework for all the other loves. When you walk into a room and somebody loves you, it's great. But when you get around somebody that likes you,
yeah.
And whenever you and my dad would get together, you would do exactly what you're doing right now. What was that relationship? What was going on there?
I don't know. I think we had a kind of unspoken relationship with each other and an unspoken appreciation for each other. I think the times that we came up in, the experiences that we had, having traveled outside and then come back to Knoxville, brought a different perspective. And so I think that just being able to share together.
You know, it makes a difference when, especially in the ministry, when you meet another guy in the ministry that's not territorial, that's not jealous, and that gets the struggle.
Yeah.
Daddy would have been 100 years old this year.
Right.
You are
81.
So he knew he was a forebear.
Yeah.
And what I did not know, because I want to go back through your story, I did not know how active my father had been in the civil rights movement. He just didn't talk about it.
Right.
But he had been in Savannah, he had been in Detroit, Michigan, he had been in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and he had been in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And he had been in the middle of some pretty incredible stuff. So as you are moving along in ministry, he understood what you were up against.
Yeah, and I think that was important because we were able to share. Most people don't know it. Ministers need each other. There are some things that you can't talk to a parishioner about, but another minister who has experienced it or who is experiencing it. One of the things that I'm grateful for right now with my life is there's not a minister in this city who was here when I came pastoring.
Wow.
There are a couple of young men, Jesse Williams over at Mount Olive and Joe Smith at New Friendship, who used to slip off from their churches and come hear me. They were not preaching, to come hear me preach when I first came here in '77. And I heard both of them. There was one other, Charles McAfee, who's now deceased. And I was present for all three of their first sermons. And so we have a kind of relationship, but I'm grateful that that relationship is even farther than just us being pastors. I'm able to share some experiences with them. And then I've got somebody I can bounce stuff off to.
It's a great thing.
It is. It is.
I used to slip off to your church. One of the things I remember was, man, you had great music at that church.
Yes, yes.
There was one time I came to your church. I don't know if he was visiting. Was there a young man named Dawson Marcus? I think he was with T.D. Jakes or with somebody.
Okay.
I know you had. Did you have Aaron Staples over there for years?
At Canaan for years, Aaron Staples was our minister of music. I've been blessed. For when I first came here, Murphy Strong was at Mount Calvary, and Murphy was very good. When Aaron Staple came to us, he was looking for somewhere to go, and I was looking for somebody.
And man, here's what I remember about it the most, because I want to get into your story, but I'd never talked to you about the music thing. You can sing.
Oh, no.
Wait a minute. I was there. I saw it happen. You would get caught up, you'd be preaching, and you would start to sing.
Yeah. Well, the people in the congregation said I sang. I never saw myself as a singing preacher.
I saw it happen. I saw the church go crazy.
But really, the title of this show is
Anything.
So with God, anything is possible. And I think that getting lifted up in the Spirit, the Lord, took me out of me to share with the people. And so I'm really grateful for the experiences that life has given me and the opportunity.
Possibility powered by Pilot Flying J, Covenant Health, Home Federal, and the Knoxville News Sentinel. Coming up.
And 7 of us, he patted on the head, said, bless you, bless you. One young man, he did not. The 7 of us all became preachers.
Wow.
The one young man that he did not touch died in a gunfight with the police in Memphis.
Let's talk about your story. Your life, you're from Memphis.
I grew up on Wellington Street in Memphis. And everybody on our street was poor. Poor. We couldn't afford the OR. But nobody knew we were poor because we were all in the same situation. And we all were grateful for what God provided for us. We went to Southern segregated schools, but we had teachers who lived in the community or around us, who knew us and knew our parents, and who shared with us and instilled in us. When I was 5, my grandmother told me one day, boy, you're somebody. Mm-hmm. Well, when I was about 7 or 8, she said to me one day, your feet might be in the mud, but your head ought to be in the stars because you're somebody. And so I grew up not with a whole lot of stuff, mm-hmm. but with an appreciation for who I could be or who I was in God's sight.
If you think about Negro spirituals, the audacity of some of these lyrics and what our forebears programmed into us without evidence that what they were saying was true. For instance, you're barefoot, you're picking cotton, and somebody has the audacity to sing, I got shoes.
You got shoes. All of God's children got shoes. When I get to heaven.
When, not if.
Yeah, when I get to heaven, gonna put on my shoes.
And walk all over.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go anywhere I wanna go. So to tell you that you are somebody, feet in the mud, head in the stars, that's transformative.
But remember also, many of the preachers of our day were not formally trained. But they caught a message that says, if God could deliver Moses and the children of Israel, he can deliver us. And so they kept preaching, God's going to send us a Moses. God's going to send us a Moses. And they were really getting our mindset ready, I think, for the late 50s, early 60s. Reverend had told me God was going to send us a Moses. Well, his name wasn't Moses.
His name was Martin. In much the same way John the Baptist.
So when you grow up with this in you, you have my principal in the high school was a Disciples of Christ preacher who walked down the halls of the school with a bell. And you knew that if you were out of place when you heard that bell tinkling, you were supposed to get in place. But he kept instilling in us. In fact, the registrar at Morehouse had been a dean at Lemoyne College, who every year came back to Memphis to recruit some students to go to Morehouse. And he'd go to the 6 black high schools and find one person. My principal had been a Morehouse man, and he and another lady in the school saw something in me, and they called me. He talked to nobody else at the school about coming to Morehouse but me.
So you grew up in Memphis. People believe that there's something special about you. They invest in that.
They invested in you.
They seed that, and you end up at Morehouse.
And they say that anything is possible. So I end up at Morehouse. Now understand, I was the first person in my family, either side of the family, to go to college.
So that had to be like landing on the moon. It's
Yeah,
a quantum leap.
The interesting thing was, my mother said to me, you know, we really can't afford to send you to college. Not even to Lemoyne College in Memphis. And so I really signed up to go to the Army. Passed all of the tests. Was scheduled to report to the Army on the 22nd of June, 1960. Morehouse gave me a summer grant as a Woodrow Wilson fellow to come to Morehouse the 12th of June.
Wow.
And so I missed going to Vietnam to go to Morehouse on what was then a partial scholarship, which ended up with most everything paid until Dr. King Sr. helped me to get the rest of the money together. So I'm saying life was such for me that I grew up not having the resources, not having a place where I knew I could get the resource, but having instilled within me a sense of, you're somebody, you're God's child. And that translated into going on to being in Atlanta, to being a part of Dr. King, and then ended up being in Knoxville.
At Morehouse, was that when you felt called to ministry?
I heard Perry Mason on the radio, and I was determined that I was going to be the Black Perry Mason. I saw a couple of the lawyers in Memphis, and they were struggling, you know, but they were lawyers, so they, in our sight, they were somebody because they were a step above. And I went to Morehouse really thinking, everybody in my church knew that I was going to be a preacher but me. I was determined. You know, when I grew up, many of the preachers in Memphis was kind of stereotypical. They wore certain kinds of suits and the coats hang, and the shoes were Stacy's, but they were turned up at the toe. And everywhere they went, they ate chicken. They got the best pieces. But I was determined that there was no way I was going to be a preacher. I was going to be an attorney. But I got waylaid by God. And I think one of the things that helped is that going to Atlanta, being on Morehouse's campus, where the head of every department except one was a graduate of Morehouse, where most of the instructors were graduates of Morehouse who had gone on to get their PhDs and who said to us, you know, not necessarily verbally, but by their walk, I know I'm somebody. And so I kept saying, I'd go to French early in the morning, 8 o'clock class. And had not been able to sleep all night, wrestling with me. And drop off to sleep. Dr. Jones, we called him Parlez-vous. Monsieur. But I called my pastor when I finally came to grips with this. And I said, I'm accepting my call to the ministry. And he said to me, what took you so long? I've been waiting 3 months on you to call me, because I knew you had to go. The strange thing is, that night that I called him and said it was the first night I finally got some sleep. And I went to French and stayed awake the whole day. So the point I'm making is that I grew up in a situation where, from a community perspective, nothing was expected of us. But from where the little circle that I grew up, you were expected. There was a man by the name of Bishop C.H. Mason. C.H. Mason was the founder of the Church of God in Christ. He lived 2 streets over from us. The lady who lived right across the street from us was a missionary in the Church of God in Christ. And she'd go to Africa and to Jamaica and Haiti, preaching and teaching and serving. And she'd come back, and Bishop Mason would walk around the neighborhood to get her report. I know about 7 or 8 of us. And 7 of us, he patted on the head. Said, bless you, bless you. One young man, he did not. The 7 of us all became preachers.
Wow.
The one young man that he did not touch died in a gunfight with the police in Memphis. And he touched all of us. And so I think there were so many things happening in your life.
All conspiring
to bring you to a point
man.
Where God wanted you to be.
I am so enthralled by your story, and I know it's going to take us 2 episodes. So folks, this is part 1 of a 2-parter with my friend Dr. Harold Middlebrook. You leave Morehouse, and what came after Morehouse?
Well, I left Morehouse early to go to work with. The strange thing is that in Memphis in 1960, the sit-in started. I was a senior in high school, the president of the student council at Booker Washington. I don't know how I ended up on Saturday at Lemoyne College. Nobody was there but college students. And they decided to sit in. Now in Memphis, the sit-ins did not start at the lunch counters. They started at the libraries. And somehow, the only high schooler to end up going to sit in at the library in Memphis was me. Everybody got arrested. Everybody else went to jail. I went to juvenile. Everybody else got out on Saturday nights on bond. I had to wait till Monday morning till the juvenile court judge came in.
Wow.
To release me to my parents and give me a good lecture. And then I end up at Morehouse, and they're sitting in. And I end up going to Rich's department store to sit in. Guess who sits in with us?
Who?
Martin Luther King Jr.
In fact, I believe at that department store, there were two areas. Was there a 6th floor?
Yes.
That had a special
Yes,
restaurant? Did you guys go up on this?
That's where we went.
Oh man! So we got to pause here because I want to pick up there because Dr. Middlebrook had a tremendous journey with Martin Luther King Jr. You don't want to miss this as part 2 of this interview. More next time.